Hello, business building warrior. Welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio. I'll have a guest popping on with us here in just a moment. It's someone that's been on the show before, I'm talking about Grant Douglas. He's one of the great success stories and a coach on our team as well, who has coached at this point several dozen students in our community who have built beautiful businesses. Many of them have become guests on this show themselves. So, like I said, Grant's been with us a few times in the past, but in recent conversations in our Facebook group, there's been themes that have emerged of people talking about different replens strategies. Now, of course, we all have a strategy of wanting to build a profitable business and wanting to automate it to the greatest extent possible. We all have that in common, but which of the different replens strategies are going to go after? And today we're spending some time specifically talking about the buy box. Now, if you don't know what the buy box is, Grant explains it early on in the episode today. He breaks it down beautifully, so I won't spend time on that necessarily. And we get a little update on Grant and how his business is doing as well towards the beginning, and then we get right into what is the buy box. So we'll let him handle that. But let's think about this perspective of, should you be pricing your products on Amazon at buy box level, like what Keep is telling you the typical buy box is, and trying to win the buy box for the majority of your sales? Or should you be looking more at trying to price above buy box and getting higher margin sales, obviously, if you're winning sales at that level? What are the risks and advantages of each model? What are the different paces of each model? Like, is it a fast pace? Is it a slower pace? What are the margins? Like I said, how easy is it for you to find inventory to sell at buy box versus above buy box and make a profit? So we're going to talk through all of that. And it isn't so much of a strategy A versus strategy B discussion. When you take it in small little snippets, it can feel like that. But I think ultimately the conclusion we come to, and we talk through a nice list of factors today, Grant and I, what you come to the conclusion is, and just to jump to the end of the story, you're kind of crazy to ignore either one as your business ramps up. We do talk about brand new sellers today and what their options are based on, again, their risk tolerance, how much time and money they have to put into their business, what kind of ASINs, what kind of listings should they be looking for. But very quickly, everyone who follows our system, if they're following what we teach around here, they get to the point where they're running out of money before they run out of great products to sell against. And their decision becomes, what strategies should I be using to turn my money over as quickly as possible while staying within my risk tolerance? It's a cool conversation. I think it's going to serve you very well to listen through. And I made the observation towards the end of the episode today that this is an episode you might have to listen to a couple different times, especially if you're newer around here. But just keep in mind, the entire time we're talking about a relatively simple thing to explain, and that is the Amazon buy box, the default price that a customer sees when they're shopping for an item. There may be 50 sellers on an item. Only one of them is the default for that seller at that moment in time, for that shopper at that moment in time. They're seeing one seller, one price option. Now they can go look at all the other prices if they'd like, and they can choose any of them. If you've shopped on Amazon, you know what I'm talking about. But that default, that's the buy box. Again, Grant's going to explain that. And then we're going to talk about how you should be pricing your inventory. Should you start high and then come down low as necessary, or should you just move stuff quickly and go right in at buy box and try to win it as aggressively as you can? Or is it something in between? It's a great conversation. Hopefully you enjoy it and benefit from it. Hey, I've got to make an announcement before we jump into the episode with Grant. I'll bring him on in just a moment. Our conference is coming at us quickly. The last 3 days of May of 2025. Come to Orlando, Florida. We're going to gather. Hundreds of us are already registered. We got our hotel rooms. It's coming together beautifully. All kinds of great speakers, including our guest today, Grant Douglas. He'll be doing a breakout session. We talk about that a little bit. But this was recently voted the #1 reseller-only event in all of the Amazon kingdom. That's right. It is a great event. We've been doing it many years, longer than anyone in the world. And we love getting new sellers there, experienced sellers. It's going to be a great time of hanging out, having good conversations with other sellers, people who have already built the business that you're trying to build, people with great strategies and insights for you. The conversations in the hallway are priceless. Loads of great sponsors and tools there to help you grow your business. It's going to be beautiful. Do not miss this event. You need to be in Orlando the last 3 days of May 2025. There's a workshop happening the 2 days prior as well. That's open your laptop, small group. Let's dig in and build your business 3 to 6 months forward in a couple days. That's our workshop. You want to check that out at provenamazoncourse.com/100. That's our pre-event workshop at the same location. The main event is the Proven Conference. Go to that website, theprovenconference.com, to get your tickets. Hey, let's jump over it and have a great conversation with one of the great coaches on our team, Mr. Grant Douglas. Here we go. But Grant, always good to see you, my friend. How are you, brother?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back on.
Awesome. Like I said in the intro, man, one of our top coaches. You've helped so many students build beautiful businesses. Your business is great, but for those who maybe haven't met you before, you've been on the show a few times, just get us up to speed on your story. Then we'll jump into the topic today.
Yeah, so I'm 4 years into the Amazon business. I've been doing it full time for 3.5 years. This is all my family does. Not much has changed since the last time we chatted. My sales have gone up a little bit, adding a little more units per month, which means adding a little bit to our team. I have between three people, about 50, 60 hours of prep work each week for them. And really just I've stuck with Replens and wholesale and not really branched off from that because it's my comfort level and it pays the bills, and it's what I teach as well to other students. And so it's been good. I still have about probably 20, 30, 40 active students right now I talk with on a weekly or monthly basis. And several of them have been on the podcast. I always love hearing that and hearing kind of their story, and it reminds me of where they started and where they are now, and it's been good. So it's been a really good past. I think the past year has been really good on Amazon for me and my family.
We're blessed, though, buddy, to be in such a community where all the leaders are people who truly care about the success of the students, and we want to serve them with excellence. And you've just been a tremendous coach, man. I just wanted to say that, take an opportunity to say thank you, and you're doing great work. And there's about 100 of us around here that pitch in a little bit on the leadership team on some level, and you certainly carry more than your fair share of the load. So in the Facebook group and coaching. So thank you, buddy. You're doing tremendous work. And you're going to be at the conference with us too, right? We're working on that and going to have a session.
Yeah, I'll be there. If you need me to do a session, I'll do a session. But it's an excuse. It's a business write-off to go down and spend the week in Florida. Universal opens up that week their new Super Mario Land, so we may fight the crowds for that, or we'll just go across the street to SeaWorld or Disney. We'll see, but we'll definitely be there.
It's going to be tremendous, man. We've got hundreds of people registered already. Can't wait. But it looks like we're going to have about 40 breakout sessions again, and absolutely you're going to have one of them. I think we'd have a riot on our hands if you didn't have a session. So yeah, you're doing a great job, buddy. Well, let's get into the topic today, and I kind of set it up a little bit in the intro, but let's talk about the landscape of different ways you can do replens. Now, by no means will this be comprehensive, but I think just to set the table, because we've jumped into some conversations in Facebook, and some people may know what we're talking about. Most people won't, but there are a good handful of ways, and it kind of breaks down almost into two camps, but not cleanly. But there's a few different ways to do the replens business when it comes to, and let me just lay out the categories that I hope to ping through with you today. All right, Grant?
Yeah.
The pace of the business, and we'll explain what that means. Do you want a faster pace or slower pace business, easy going, or you're pedal to the metal, right? The risk of loss. Some people are very risk averse. Like, hey, I'm going to put $100 into this thing and it better work or I'm out of here. And other people are like, I've got 40 grand. Tell me how to play with this the right way. I want to be responsible, but I'm ready to go. Right. Yeah. So we'll talk about that risk of big losses. What's your risk aversion? The ease of finding potential winning ASINs, potentially winning inventory, easy versus hard there. The size of the business you're trying to grow, the cash flow issues, we'll hit that, kind of combine those together. And finally, the net margins that you're able to achieve, which kind of goes with some of the other topics that I already listed through. But those are kind of the general categories. And we just want to say, what's the spectrum of opportunity, of the replens opportunity, as seen through each of those factors, right? In no particular order, but we may add more to it as we go. But I'm looking forward to just talking this through with you because I've kind of been the champion, if so to speak, of the above buy box strategy for the past couple of years. Now, that's not all that we do, but I am just so excited about it. And sometimes I come across, I know I do, as a hammer who sees everything as a nail on that topic because I'm so enamored with it, and I'm
Right.
sensitive. But it's certainly not
And it
for
works for
everyone.
everyone where however someone runs a business and what they find successful for them, I naturally want to share that with my coaching students of, hey, this is what works for me. You should do
Exactly.
this too because I'm making money this way. You're doing nothing different than that.
Right, right. And you can do both, and we have plenty of people, and I've had people on this show. They're like, yeah, I got about 30% of my ASINs or the above buy box, and I'm just killing it with the margin, but they move slower. And then I've got a lot of buy box winners. I'm buying, 300 a month of those things and selling them through them as fast as I can get them. Right. So
Right.
it's not like you have to do one or the other. But
Right.
I just wanted to paint a landscape and this is an episode I think will refer people to when they go like, oh, which strategy should I use? Above buy box, or should I be looking at trying to find buy box winners? So let's start here though, Grant. I think
Mhm.
it's important. We're throwing this word around, buy box, buy box. I think the industry's lacked clarity for a while. What exactly is the buy box? We all think we know, but you go first.
Yeah.
I'll play cleanup. What is the buy box? I mean, just pretend I don't know anything too. Let's just start there.
Right. Yeah. So I do think the buy box is important for us to understand what it is. It does have a place for anyone that sells on Amazon, at the very least as a reference point. You may want to sell above the buy box, but that is a reference if it's there. 85 to 90% of all sales take place in that person's buy box. So that means that, around, and I have no idea if that data that I saw has to do with suppressed listings. Let's just throw that out for a later
Right.
discussion.
Yeah.
But that means if there's a buy box, about 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, the customer is going to select what they see on their screen when they're looking at an item. When they're going to buy something that maybe they buy all the time, they've searched for all the time, there's going to be a featured offer on most Amazon listings. And that feature offer is the price that one seller has it at one shipping speed. And if it's something that us resellers sell and something you can find at Target, Walmart, things like that, there might be 5, 10, even I've seen 200 other offers of people selling the same thing with a different price and at a different shipping speed. The thing that's tricky is that my buy box price in Cincinnati, Ohio, is very different than your buy box price, and there's many different buy box prices, and it all is based off of where some seller's inventory is and in relation to where they are. Now, the thing that's really tricky with that is like, how does Amazon decide who is in the buy box? Because if that's true, right? If 90% of all sales happen in the buy box, we can focus on that 10% and make some good money there. But it would be really good to know, like, how am I in the buy box? How could I be in that rotation? And the two things that matter more than anything that we know or we've gathered, from years of selling is the price and the shipping speed. Sure, your reviews and percentage of reviews matters a little bit. It does. Your stock level, it absolutely does matter as much as price and shipping speed, though. No, it doesn't. And there's other things as well too. But the 1A and 1B is without a doubt the price and the shipping speed. And so if we did want to be in the buy box in as many of these regions as we can, the lower the price and the lower the shipping speed helps with that. Does that mean we have to be the lowest on both? No. And that's a mistake people have made for a very long time. And that's what tanks prices. Do we probably need to have one of those? Yes. Like, you probably either need to have a fast shipping time or a good price. Is there some middle ground of where you can be on that too? Yeah. And so I would say that's what the buy box is. And that's why it's important to understand as sellers.
And I think to understand the buy box, we need to move away from it being a data point, and you just alluded to this, to being you got to think of a map of the United States. So what I would like the thing I would like sellers to do when someone says buy box is instantly they see a map of the United States in their mind. It's not a single point in time. Now, for some ASINs, it truly is the same buy box from LA to Miami to Baltimore. It's the same buy box, same seller,
Mm-hmm.
same wait time, because someone's sending 10,000 units and they've got the best price and they're sitting in every FBA warehouse. And typically it's probably Amazon that's winning the buy box, right? They are the default option for literally everyone.
Yeah.
What we're discovering is not very many ASINs fall into that category. I would venture to say, this is just me pulling a random number, but maybe only 20% of the best selling ASINs on Amazon fall into the category of, same buy box for everybody across the United States. So suddenly that metric of me being fastest, well, it's just a matter of me having one unit in LA when no one else does. Now I'm fastest, right? And
Yeah.
I don't need to have the best price suddenly, right? So that opens up the door to us discussing, like, how high can I crawl my prices if I happen to be one of the only FBA sellers on a really fast moving ASIN as a strategy, right? So yeah, what would you add to that? Just as still, the goal is to try to identify
Right.
what is buy box, right? Just we want to. It's a bigger picture than we always thought it was.
Mm-hmm. So traditionally, when I was taught about the buy box, I was told that the buy box rotates on average, but let's assume that there's 20, 30 sellers on there, that the buy box rotates between about 4 to 6 different sellers. And the reason that we would know this is that when you look at Keepa, you hit the data tab, there's a buy box percentage button, and you see it says what percentage different people got the buy box. Now, that is only for wherever Keepa is pulling that data,
Right.
which I was told one time was New York, New York. I was told by someone else, I actually asked Keepa that, and they said it's essentially in incognito mode. And I was like, well, I don't know what that means. And so maybe I know the Olsons have said, hey, I think it might be a few different, like varying locations, but regardless, it's not capturing all of them. And so we already know the buy box is going to rotate, between, and I think it's still true. Like if there's, 10 people matching the same price, you're not going to see one person dominating. It's going to be 4 to 5 that are in there in whatever data Keepa gives us. And so the thing, though, that we're learning a little bit more is that because there's so many different regional buy boxes and so many, a growing number of warehouses that are next door to certain people, that the percentage of sales or the number of sellers that are kind of in that mix of getting these sales is a lot higher. And their sales, of course, going outside of the buy box too. But we're talking about the 90% that does. That's kind of how you get there.
As reported by Keepa, which again could only be monitoring. And I tend to fall into the camp of, I think they're looking at different random zip codes at any given time. That's kind of where the camp that I'm in with Keepa. But certainly no tool, Keepa included, there's no tool out there that's showing you all the zip codes in the United States and what's going on. And nobody knows ultimately who's winning sales. Winning the buy box, yeah, we can look at that data based on whatever zip code Keepa is looking at. But who's winning the sales? No one truly knows. Amazon knows, and that's it. The seller who got the sale knows, but there's no data point on Keepa that says, hey, this guy just won a sale. So
let me throw in a nugget on that of something that I think a lot of people don't know. When you look at the buy box percentage and you're selling against Amazon, what a lot of people say to do is, hey, look at the data tab and see if Amazon's sharing the buy box. Here's the problem with that is that Amazon is typically selling at a price of like $9.99. And then when we are selling it, it's normally when they're out of stock in most cases. Sure, sometimes you can get some clearance and compete with them or get wholesale, but maybe we're selling it at $19.99 because we're buying it around that $9 price, $19.99 and higher. Well, when Amazon's out of stock and other sellers go on that, the listing typically goes suppressed because the price is higher than they want. Right. A suppressed sale will never show up on Keepa's data. So It may say that Amazon has 100% of the buy box for the entire year. And it could also be true that there's been tens of thousands of sales that are not recorded on there because the buy box was suppressed while those sales happened, or people purchased from someone that was not buy box eligible, therefore didn't show up on there, which just echoes what you were saying too.
Yeah, exactly. So that buy box rotation data that used to be gospel, I don't even use it. I never even look at it. Right. To me, it is a data point worth consideration, but it certainly is never more than a tiny fraction of my consideration. And when people say things like, "Well, Amazon gets 100% of the buy box, I'm going to move on." Whoa, time out. That's not a full analysis of an ASIN ever. Or seller X gets 100% of the buy box, so I'm going to move on because they keep winning everything. No, you've got to realize that winning the buy box doesn't mean necessarily that you're winning all the sales. And like you said, it could be a suppressed buy box too, meaning in my definition of a suppressed buy box is when Amazon doesn't like the prices people are willing to pay,
Right.
shoppers are willing to pay. If Amazon doesn't like the prices shoppers are willing to pay on a product, they're going to hide or suppress that default option. So people have to click a button to see the options. It's silliness. It's pure foolishness on the part of Amazon. If I could push a button and change it, I'd help Amazon make more money. I'd help you and me as sellers sell more product, and I'd help customers be happier because they wouldn't be confused looking for the price of an item, right?
Yeah.
Like that feature needs to go away. It's ludicrous, but it's there, and that's what it means to me is if I'm smart, I'm going to hop on that ASIN, probably test a high price with a couple units, knowing only that it's a suppressed buy box, right? Or that it occasionally suppresses. But anyway, let's get through our list because
Yeah.
you and I, before we hit record today, are like, this could be 3 hours, and I don't want it to be overwhelming to people, but I do want to open up their mind again to the landscape of opportunities, the different strategies you can use, which required, and I think we hit it pretty thoroughly, an understanding of what is the buy box. So we've covered that fairly well. Let's talk about the pace of the business as the first topic. So talk to me about you coach way more students than I do. And so you're having people come at you with different parameters over what their time schedules allow, how much time they can put into this. The pace, I think, is a good word. What do you
Yeah.
do? Give me examples of people at different pace and what you might advise them to do.
Yeah. So someone might come to me and they're trying to replace their income and they don't like their job. They want to, as soon as possible, make full-time income so that they can maybe bring themselves home or bring their spouse home. And so that would be someone that if, we haven't gotten into the cash flow side of things, but let's just say that they want to, within their means, move as fast as possible. That person, what I would advise them to do is, as a brand new seller, sell at the buy box, make a couple bucks, make a bunch of cheap purchases, things that you can find for $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, so that the risk is lower. But don't be afraid to move those as fast as possible. And this is not advice I used to give 2 years ago, because 2 years ago, you would get, as a new seller, you were open to sell any, big box private label brand, all the Equates, Great Values from Walmart and all the
Finding
other
ungated
stores.
ASINs was easier 3 years
Yes.
ago than it is now. Right.
Yeah.
So stacking transactions early can really help speed up the process. And you're saying, yeah, you buy low cost items and stack those transactions as fast as you can as early as they can in the game if you want to go at a fast pace. Right.
Right.
Makes
Yeah. Because
total sense.
I've talked about this even on my last podcast, but really the thing is that you need to prove to Amazon that you're legit, that you're not a foreign counterfeit seller who is a drop shipper who's going to have horrible reviews.
Right.
Once you've done a couple hundred sales, you'll probably get 1 or 2 reviews, possibly if you're lucky, maybe more. And then the gates unlock for you. So if you're someone that's like, I need this to be successful now, I encourage cheap, fast units at break even or better. But lots of times these are just $1 to $2 profits, because we're not only unlocking things, we're gaining proof of concept, we're understanding reading Keepa, we're learning how to do a shipment, we're learning how to print labels. You get, hey, I'm getting more, I need a Rolo now, I need a thermal printer to speed things up. We're getting all of our software set up, right? And then it's like, all right, now the gates are unlocked. Hey, now let's talk about some other strategies. So that's the one extreme, right? The person that's like, I got all the money in the world, I got all the time in the world, let's do this. And that is what I would tell them to do.
And then there's a spectrum. Obviously that person doesn't exist on our bell curve, but that's the far side of the spectrum, right? Most people are kind of in the middle of these two extremes, the middle of the bell curve where most people hang out. But let's go to the other extreme now.
Yeah. So the other extreme is someone that, quite frankly, does not have very much money that they want to put into it. Maybe it's a risk thing. Maybe it's just a practical thing. And I'd be hesitant to tell that person to sell things at break even, because as a new seller, you will have you're going to make a lot more mistakes. I out of all my ASINs that I have at Amazon warehouse right now, 2% of them have been there for more than 6 months. So that's really when I really turn up the heat, lower my prices, but even below break even, to say, get it out of here, is at 6 months. So I say that's one way of saying I got about 98% accuracy on my products that sell what they expect. Maybe a little less, because sometimes I'll dump them earlier. But now as a new seller though, you're not having 95% accuracy. You're going to send in the wrong product. You're going to send the biggest mistake I see is someone gets so excited because they see something finally with 100% ROI, but they sent in a 1-pack on a 2-pack listing.
Right.
And so those things are going to happen. And so what is the only way to cushion yourself from that mistake is to buy higher ROI. And I think, there was someone that posted in this group earlier today. If you're so capital limited and if you are so risk adverse, honestly, the first thing you might want to do is go garage sales and do clearance aisles and do really none of the things that we talk about in many of these episodes.
Right. Raise some capital.
Or even get a DoorDash job or one of those that pays you for a service.
Right.
But
To
once
even
you
get on
get
our
into
bell
the
curve.
game,
Yeah. To even get into this game. Like if someone comes to us and says, okay, I've only got $500, teach me to do the replens. We say, you do not have enough capital to get off the runway with this business. You're going to burn through your cash, not have a lot to show for it, be anxious because Amazon's holding a reserve on your first 3 sales, right? Like you're not positioned. We've been typically saying the bare minimum is, and this is where, opinions come in, but for me, the bare minimum, 1,000 to 1,500, ideally 2,000. Now you're ready to have a nice, few months smooth ramp up. And that needs to be money that you don't need to get your hands on for other things. Like this is business money for inventory. We can get you proof of concept and get you ramped up that for that amount of money. But that's the bare minimum. That's the left edge of the bell curve. Right.
Yeah. And so I think in the middle here where we land is someone that wants to make sure they're having good ROI. And let me just tell you straightforward, as someone that does online arbitrage at the buy box is what I do. It's hard to get some real solid, even with me ungated and everything, it's hard to get some real solid ROIs and margins at the buy box. Now, I've been able to turn $1, $2, $3 a transaction times whatever and really profitable for my family. But as a new seller, lots of times people are looking for at the buy box, wanting to have 50 to 75% ROI on these limited ASINs that they're ungated in, and that's just not realistic. And so that's where someone, I think what the answer is, if you can decide kind of which spectrum you're on, but that person straight in the middle, what you need to do is you need to buy some of these cheap things, sell at the buy box for a couple bucks, see what happens. Look for some things that you're the only FBA seller on or within one of 2 that are fast moving enough to buy a couple units, price it high and see what happens. And what I encourage all my students to do is try a plethora of things, a plethora of sourcing strategies from all the videos and resources we have. See what sells, see what makes you money, see what just matches your personality and what you want your business to be. And then go down that path more. And I think that's what's so important, though, is look, you've got to know and you've got to try several different options because it's different for different people, what they like, what they prefer, and what ends up being successful for them.
Yeah. We have some people that say, I never want to step foot in a store. I don't care if I could pull $20 bills off my local Walmart. I am not going in there. And we have other people like, I cannot stand the monotony of shopping online. I only want to go retail, right? So even those factors start to kick in. We don't have time to go through the full list of factors, but you're exactly right. Different personalities, different end goals. I have people who love prepping, and I have to drag them kicking and screaming from doing their own prepping because they're that close to building a system that can be run by a team, and they're not needed. But they just love putting tape on boxes. So everyone's got those personality quirks and they bring to the table that kind of makes different sourcing strategies and everyone's business is different, which is part of the beauty of this. There's not like a one cookie cutter, like, okay, everybody do this exact thing. Your schedule, the amount of money you have, personality, how you feel sitting down with tape and boxes, right? Like all those go into factors of how you're going to manage your business. But yeah, that's great. So the pace of the business, do you want to go really far, really fast? Which is when a coach makes sense, by the way, for that one edge of the bell curve. It's like, hey, I've got plenty of money. I love you guys, trust you. Let's go as far as we can. That's when having a coach really makes sense because your up ramp curve is going to be so much cleaner with so fewer mistakes. So coaching is really built for people on that side of the bell curve or, in the middle or that side of the bell curve. But all right, well, let's move on to talk about the risk of significant loss, which we've already kind of hit on, but I'd like to just take that and let's keep that same bell curve in mind of people who are kind of on both sides of the spectrum. And, the person with $500, a big loss is $100 or $50 even. That's a big loss. Person on the other side of the bell curve with 40 grand to spend, and I'm willing to put some of it at risk and play out over time. A big loss to them is a different thing. So talk to me about risk of loss for both sides of the bell curve.
Yeah. So for lots of times, what someone tells me is like, I'll get, when we get a new student, there's some background information that they've talked to the coaching office sometimes of like what their goals are. And sometimes it'll say something like, hey, I want to do 50,000 a month in sales and make this much per month. And so even just on the sales piece. And so one of the first things I do is I try to make goals tangible and let them know this is what that would look like. Because typically I've been through that process. I've been at that point of being at 50,000 a month in sales. I know what that looks like, how many units we're talking about, or how at least how much money you're spending on that. And so, and I think this is going to be really important for people that are listening that want this to be full-time to understand what the risk would be on that, especially moving fast, is you're going to have to spend about 20,000 a month on inventory to do 50,000 a month in sales. If you strike gold, or if you have some retail experience and you know someone to help you get into wholesale, maybe you can spend 15,000 a month to do that. But that's the tricky part of it, is you do have to spend a lot more capital on that end, and it takes a couple months to get your money back. And so we're talking with Amazon Reserves, it takes 2 months before you get a dime back. So if you want to do 50,000 in sales, the minimum is you're going to have 30,000 to spend over 2 months to get there. And it takes people some time to get that. So what does that mean? Does that mean it's impossible? No, there's credit card companies that are more than happy to give you that at a 0% interest, and you better pay them back in a year, or else there's some, high interest fees. And quite frankly, that's what I did, is I ramped up fast. I needed to. I wanted to make this full time. It was worth the risk for me. It was really the opportunity cost of, I'm not going to know if this is or isn't going to work out unless I just go at it with everything I got. I know that could have ended poorly. I'm grateful it didn't. It ends great for many people, and some people find themselves in a lot of debt, and I recognize that risk. So that's the extreme. That's like, if you're going to try to ramp up fast, the most common thing that my successful students say, and we're talking about the ones that are on the podcast and ones that have a great business, beautiful looking stair steps on their sales chart. The most common thing that they say to me is, I'm a little low on money. And we're not saying they're in debt per se. It means all of their money is in inventory, and they found so many ASINs that they want to send in more. And it's hard. So if you want to ramp up fast, that's the risk. And now slower though, I know a lot of people come here from backgrounds of, no credit cards, of profit first, and wanting to see proof of concept. And lots of times it's not even them, it's a spouse that's like, you're only going to spend this much until there's money in the bank. Yes. And in my scenario that I gave, I would encourage them to tell that spouse, just, if you do this, they're not going to see it. Like it's going to be a while. You're going to reinvest your profits for a while, but then eventually you can take them out. So on the other side of the spectrum, it's, hey, look, you're going to have to just take it slow. You're going to if you have 500 to spend, you should spend that 500 on what is most likely to give you the biggest return on your investment. And we would source accordingly to that. We wouldn't be sourcing at Walmart, I'll tell you that. Or you would look for those rare Walmart ASINs that have only one FBA seller. That would probably be a big thing I'd push people towards, if that is these filters on Keep a Product Finder with 0 or 1 FBA sellers, because there's a better chance you can go above buy box and sell above the typical buy box price. The whole thing does that's the negative. It moves so much slower if you're going to do that in the beginning with a limited income. Now, of course, there's people in the middle, right? And what you need to do is figure out what's an ROI or a margin you can work with to be profitable. Typically 25 to 30% ROI is as low as I go. And someone that is risk adverse, you probably should not sell on anything that the buy box historical price doesn't get you at about 25% ROI. That would be probably the safest way to go. And then as you grow and as you learn, I know, Jim, you sometimes sell on ones that, well, Amazon's on there half the time. And if I sold with them, I'm making no money and losing a little bit. but there's some profit to be gained and some potential to sell above that on these times they're out of stock. That would be for someone in the middle to do. That would not be for someone on the extremely cautious spectrum to try, because there's a good chance your money is lost there too.
Hey, pardon the short interruption, but I've got an important announcement. We'll get back to the show in just a moment. But have you circled this date on your calendar yet? If not, do it right now. The last 3 days of May 2025, join hundreds of listeners to this show in Orlando, Florida. We want you there. The website is 3 words long, theprovenconference.com, theprovenconference.com. We want you there. You're going to absolutely love it. It's the longest running Amazon seller conference in the world. Did you know that? It was also recently voted among all Amazon sellers who participated in a third-party voting. It wasn't us that sponsored this survey. It was a third-party, neutral third party. It was voted the #1 reseller conference in the world, right up there with Amazon's own event itself, which they spend millions and millions of dollars on their event. We have a smaller budget than that, but what we do have is the content and the connections and the relationships and the tools to blast your business into the future. Let's get together the last 3 days of May 2025 in Orlando, Florida, with hundreds of listeners to this show. Theprovenconference.com has details. Get your tickets now. The resort is phenomenal, a very family-friendly place, multiple swimming pools right next door to SeaWorld. Bring your family, come hang out, come a few days early, stay a few days late. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see you in Orlando. Let's get back to the show.
That would not be for someone on the extremely cautious spectrum to try, because there's a good chance your money is lost there too.
I agree. Someone who's really risk averse. Again, this person may not even exist, but this is the far left edge of our bell curve. Okay. Over here. And like, I got no money, barely got any time. I can't put any of this at risk. It's going to take some time to build your business. Okay. Anyone who doesn't say that's lying to you. You're going to have to research for quite a while to find those winners. You probably get into buying stuff that's on sale, the clearance aisle at Walmart kind of stuff that like, oh, wow, this is selling for $5 and it's selling on Amazon for $80. And like, yeah, no brainer. Like it's probably going to be some of those that get you rolling. But I want to talk about the above buy box, because you kind of alluded to that. Like Amazon's all over this thing, but they kind of come and go. And one of the features that I encouraged Keepa to add, and they added it, was the out of stock counter. Just for this reason, if I can search through Keepa's entire database and say, show me the ASINs that Amazon ran out of stock on more than 5 times a month over the last 3 months, that are selling for, say, above $25, and they drop more than, say 50 times a month, for example. I've just created a killer above buy box list of ASINs that I can go buy 2 or 3 at a time, hop on, and have a reasonably high expectation that in the next 30 to 60 days, I'm going to get a killer margin on each of those. Now, I'm not going to sell 50 probably of any of that stuff, but I'm going to sell 2 or 3 per month, maybe 5 or 10 a month at beautiful margins. And again, the pace of that business. So this is where the middle of the bell curve, you kind of start to see an opportunity for both strategies. You've got some money. You don't need it to turn super fast. You want to protect your margins a little bit, which is where the above buy box starts to get a little friendlier, because it's not unusual at all for us, like 150% ROI all day, every day on these ASINs. I'm not saying we're selling them all day, every day. I'm saying I can find a ton of them anytime I want, but it might take 6 weeks for something to sell, but it's a beautiful margin, right? So that's the I think the distinction here that we're wanting to paint. In a perfect world, they'd be selling 50 a day at 150% net margin, and you'd be all the way on the edge of the bell curve going full speed ahead with above buy box only. And you will find some of those unicorn ASINs along the way that are just like too good to be true for a season of, potentially several months. But for the most part, these above buy box are slow, steady sellers, a few a month, a slower pace, perhaps beautiful margins. But you do need some capital to play the game, because the money's going to come back to you slowly with the above buy box, right?
So let me throw this in here, because I don't want to forget this, and I think this is really relevant here. And as we're talking about these two extremes, I also don't want anyone to think me and Jim are on the extremes, because we're not. Because I am further one way, but my pricing strategy when I look for inventory. So I personally I'm not going to sell anything that the historical price isn't at least break even for me. That's just my personal strategy. But what I will say is I do kind of accidentally sell things above the buy box. When I purchase something, I'm purchasing it intending to sell for that 20 to 30% ROI minimum. Probably traditionally around 40 to 50 is where I land. And I'm intending to sell it around the buy box, either at the buy box or probably within, 5 to 10% of it, or $1 to $2 of it.
Yeah.
However, what my pricing strategy is, what I do, and I actually checked my repricer after, I chatted on Facebook with a few people about this. And so here's my exact strategy. What I do, I send in my inventory $5 above whatever is higher, the buy box or the lowest FBA. So that's the price that it goes in and sells while it's on the way to Amazon, is $5 above that. Mm-hmm. I have my repricer set to when my inventory is back ordered. Now, my understanding of what that is from my repricer, I use Smart Repricer, is that it is not fully checked in for Prime shipping. I think sometimes that might be a week out. Sometimes that might be 2 weeks out. I'm not really sure. I know that my inventory is available for sale and it still considers it back ordered.
That in-stock head start. Yeah.
Yes. In the Head Start program.
It can go up for sale the minute you say, hey, Amazon, it's on the way in a box that ships tomorrow. And it's already selling.
Lots of times it will,
3 weeks before that thing's sitting on a shelf, Prime eligible, but it's sold, right?
So during that time, I have my repricer set to put my inventory at my max. So I set a minimum, which is again around maybe 20, 25, 30%. Doesn't mean I want it to sell at that, but that's maybe as low as I'll go. And then my maximum is somewhere probably around 75 to 100% ROI. Depends on the product. I don't like high pricing errors, so I don't go to the moon. Like, why wouldn't you do 100% ROI? Well, because Amazon will deactivate the whole thing and I got to fix it. And it will sit at my max until my repricer decides it is not on back order, which I believe is, generally speaking, about a week less or a shipping time. And then it will automatically start just pricing at the buy box, but within my min maxes that I choose. And so doing that, I would say that just organically by it doing that. And also this happens in the midst of having inventory there. Like maybe I have 10 fully checked in. I get 10 sales. I got 5 more that are not quite fully checked in, but there, my repricer kicks it up to its max. Hey, I need to slow down my selling. I'm almost out of stock. I probably get 5 to 10% of my sales at my max price just because of that. And another thing that maybe people don't know is when you're doing the Replens game and you're selling the same thing over and over again, there is something from Target I've sold for 4 years. So it's the one RA thing that I get when I get slushies and play Mario with my kids at Target. That item there, sorry, I forget where I was going with that. But with
is it above buy box on that one item?
Yes, so it is. So it is sometimes on that, and so that 5 to 10%, selling above there, like that really helps with your margins, and honestly allows me to turn and burn my inventory fast, because I know even though I'm selling this at 30% ROI, I'm actually overall getting 35, 40% ROI because of those things that come and go.
Those 75, 80%, ROI sales that happen 10% of the time, because you're starting your prices high until it's landed on the shelf, and then you start playing for the buy box. Yeah.
So I do know what I was going to say. And now I understand why I mentioned that random thing from Target. So when someone has purchased from me before and they want to purchase it again, they're going to go into their orders. They're going to look at their previous buys and they're going to click reorder. Yes. That is seller specific reordering. If they ordered from me 3 months ago, they're going to not even look at the buy box price. They're not going to see the buy box price. They're going to click reorder from my store. Mm-hmm. Well, if I have a 2-week shipping or a 1-week shipping or I'm low on, why not sell that thing higher? Because that person's going to buy it even if I had it even higher. And so I started noticing this, like, why in the world would someone buy this? Because my shipping time is slower. But it's because when they rebuy, and I know this is true on some ASINs, I don't know if it's true on all. I just know anecdotally, I've rebought something and been like, that's way too high. You go to the buy box, well, it's $10 cheaper in the buy box. Like, oh, I'm not going to sell from that. I want the cheapest price. Like, why would I do that? So it's just a good thing to, when your inventory is low or back ordered, why sit it down low? Crank it up high, because I'm not going to be in the buy box anyway. And it allows for those other people to potentially buy it from me during that time too.
Right, right. Which, there's so many directions we could go from here, but just in hearing you describe that, theoretically, someone could, and this is what Brian and Robin Joy are teaching quite a bit, is you could say, you know what, I want to only go after those back ordered high margin, and I don't need my inventory to turn over as quickly. I want
Mhm.
high margin sales. And you start doing that across a large number of ASINs, and suddenly it's kind of like that pursuit of the Pareto principle where, 80% of my revenue is coming from 20% of my ASINs. And I think that's true for everyone. Well, what if you start chopping into that, 20%, finding only the best of that 20%, and suddenly you're making fewer sales, but they're far higher margins. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the unicorn we're chasing is, what if I didn't have anything that I'm selling 30 or 50 or more times a month? I only had the high margin handful at a time stuff. Now, we're not quite there, but I think we're close to that being a viable by itself model that's can operate at a very high level because we're getting these tools that can help you manage lists of thousands of ASINs,
Yeah.
right? And we can chase that unicorn price. And if it doesn't happen, okay, then we drop down to the mud, we break even, we get out. So that you can start to see where this becomes feasible and possible to do. But I think that you want to have the stability. I'm still of the camp. I really like to see sellers like the way you're training have the stability of at least a good handful of ASINs that are their bread and butter, solid,
Mhm.
consistent. Maybe I'm only making $3 or $2 a sale, but I'm ordering 100 units a month because the stability of your reputation with Amazon, that's a big factor.
Yeah.
Cranking transactions through the machine, that's a big factor. It makes you run a real business.
Well, hey, that's a good segue. I would love to hear us both kind of share, hey, what are the positives of this business model, right? Where my business model is I have every intention to sell at the buy box, and I will allow 5 to 10% sell above just because my repricer knows how to do that.
Yep.
Your intention is to sell above the buy box, but there's
Yes.
many times that you do have to lower it and sell lower at the traditional buy box price. We said before, we're both more familiar with our pros than we are the other person's pros, and so I think it makes sense us both kind of share. And there's some middle ground, but so I would say the reasons why, or not some reasons why, the pros of selling at the buy box. One of them is additional cash back, and so with I hate to put a number on it, but going back to that maybe 85, 90% thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the difference between selling 10 units a month at $3 profit versus 2 units a month at $10 profit? Well, one thing is in that scenario, I would get 5 times as much cash back. If you have a business that sells 50,000 a month in sales, you might be getting 1,000 a month in cash back, just based off your purchasing. And but if you lessen your units by 5%, your sales and your profit and stuff, might not be divided by 5, but your cash back would. And so instead of getting 1,000 a month cash back, maybe you're getting 2,000 a month, or so 200 a month cash back. And as you can see, as you scale and grow, that doesn't matter. Like cash back is almost a full-time income for me at the scale that I'm at. Another positive of selling at the buy box is your account health score. So my rating is 1,000. It's the high as it goes. I wish, like someone asked me when I shared that, like, hey, does that mean you don't have risk of deactivation? It's like, well, I wish they signed a contract and told me that. It's not true, but I certainly can handle a few more IP complaints. And there's scenarios that my backend data probably says I am a little safer than someone with a lower account health score. Account health score is almost solely based off of units you sell over a 3-month period, with deductions based off IP complaints. So, but the deductions far out are less than the units. So, so you have your account health score is higher, your cash back is higher. Then maybe the last thing I'll say is I do think your overall profit lots of time is higher, in or at least sometimes it is. In the illustration I gave, while I had to do more units, you get $3 per unit, 10 units, that's $30 profit. But you sell 2 units, but at $10 profit, your margins are better. The total net profit is higher with that velocity just because of how fast you're selling. And that's just for illustration. There's so many scenarios with that. But the last thing I'll say with that, though, that of course varies on who you are, what scale you're at, how much help you have. When I order 50 units, it's just a matter of me selecting something different on the screen. It doesn't take me any more time to order 50 versus 5. Literally the same amount of time, order 10 times as many units. But you know what I have in my corner is I have a whole prep team. I'm not going to have to polybag a single one of those. I may do a few things at the beginning and the end and checking it in and boxing it, like a few things here and there. My time is not 10x. Well, as a smaller seller, your time was 10x to make 10 more bucks. Was it worth it? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So, but those would maybe be the three of the things that are why I kind of lean into that. My cash back is much more. My account health makes me feel safe, whether it's illusion or not. And yeah, it just, if it's for me, and it's because it's not any added time for me personally now.
Yeah, because you've got a team, and that's a nice, again, that's a beautiful pace to your business. And I would actually add at least one more benefit to doing business where you're ordering, say dozens or 50 or 100 units at a time. You start to get more relational at that level.
Yeah,
What I mean by that is, your supplier recognizes the PO. Like, oh, this is the guy that spends, $35,000 a month with us, right? Like
yeah,
you can get, the guy that's buying 2 or 3 units at a time from RAOA kind of thing. It's less relational, and
yeah,
I am all about relationships. So your list of relationships are going to grow. If I'm going to buy 300 units of something this month, my relationships are going to be stronger if I buy one thing, 300 units,
yep,
versus one unit of 300 different things.
yep,
Right. Because now I'm dealing with 300 strangers who could care less. It's one unit. Right. So that's what I'm trying to say is you drift more into the relational territory as your POs get bigger, quantities, total dollars spent at a time in one place. Right. So I would add that as not to be underestimated benefit of going deep on certain ASINs. And you want to have those handful that you go deep on. All right. So for me, the most exciting reason, and it really is, it doesn't have to go a whole lot deeper than this. And when I talk about above buy box so much, I'm emphasizing that this is the message I want the people to hear. The people who are saying, I can't find anything. I just can't find anything. Those are the people I'm primarily talking to. And that can happen at any stage. Typically, it's the newer sellers who are saying, man, I've looked at so many ASINs. I just can't find anything. If they can grasp this above buy box, suddenly you have so many ASINs that you can put a few bucks on. And if you're not in a big hurry, especially, get proof of concept. Sometimes the stuff's going to fly off the shelf and it's going to shock you. Other times, it's going to take a few weeks, but your margins are going to be there. You're going to have some money you can show your spouse and go, hey, look, I bought 5 different things, about 2 or 3 units of each one. We can afford that. And here we are 6 weeks later. All of them have sold. A couple of them will break even, but 4 or 5 of them, I made 12 bucks a sale. Like, I want to go deeper on this, right?
yeah,
So it's that's the person I'm kind of trying to talk to. And what's cool is I'm starting to get these examples, people who are taking the ball way further than me and running with it, where you hear like the one young coaching student, a guy I go to church with who jumped in early on, coaching student of ours, jumped on an ASIN with 200 other sellers. He's the highest price seller. I know you've heard this story, but it's the most, this is the edge of the bell curve example, but these ASINs are everywhere. He's the highest price seller among 200 sellers, and he sold 2,400 units in a few weeks.
yeah,
Now, it was a back to school item, but there's always a different season coming at us, and there's always ASINs that are smoking off the shelves. But he was the highest priced seller, and he was one of the only FBA sellers. So he said, hey, I'm just going to see how high I can crank this price and see what happens. And he sold all of them,
yeah,
with literally every other seller on the ASIN being priced lower. So it just gets you into that, to me, that fun territory of experimenting, like exploring just how high can I get my prices and still serve. And it starts to paint this beautiful visual. And this is the visual I like to leave people with the above buy box. And this is an advantage, is you start to see Amazon not as a price sensitive competition with other sellers. And you see it as underserved shelf space to the tune of millions of ASINs on Amazon's hundreds of warehouse shelves, hundreds of different distribution centers. And it just allows you to play in such a bigger arena. It's a slower pace, it's higher margin. But for people who are struggling for proof of concept, or I just can't find anything, man, if you can grasp this concept and test your prices high on underserved ASINs, you're going to get some fun examples back relatively quickly of just how profitable this can be. Now, unfortunately, no one has scaled it huge yet.
Right.
Like the kid that sold the 2,400 units, he hasn't done that again since, right?
Yeah.
But those ASINs are out there. So, that when I'm pitching it, what are the advantages? It's just that internal validation of, wow, there's ASINs everywhere. And my worst case scenario is break even. If I'm not in a big hurry, I can have some fun with this thing. Right.
Yeah.
So a nice mix of the two, I think, is where most people should probably land. If you're of the thought right now, like, oh, above buy box is a waste of time. That's just a theory. It never actually works. Well, and you've illustrated that today, Grant, that
Yeah.
test your prices high, especially if it's going to take a while to get to the warehouse. You might as well. And who knows, you could make some really nice high margin sales, start to prove this out. But if you're of the camp of like, I never want to buy more than 3 units of anything, and I want super high profit on everything, it's going to take
Yeah.
you a long time to scale to a real business with
Yeah.
just that philosophy. You're going to want to go a little deeper on some of those ASINs where, okay, I'm only making $2 a sale, but I'm buying 100 units a month. And now I'm getting all the benefits that you talked about earlier, the
Yeah.
points and building a team and the reputation with Amazon. My health score goes up. And right, Amazon doesn't like getting 2 or 3 units at a time of stuff. They'll do it. They're not thrilled. They'd rather be getting a pallet, right? And so you're getting those wheels turning. How
Yeah.
did I do? Did we leave anything out between the kind of bouncing those two back and forth?
The thing that came to mind is, which is kind of like when I would make an exception and I would see something and, hey, I'm going to go above the buy box with that. And when you would make an exception and probably go at the buy box with that, I believe a lot of that has to do with, because we've talked about the individual seller's preferences, but
Mm-hmm.
lots of it has to just do with what the keep it graph says and the availability of that product. That actually drives it too. I may prefer to sell a ton of something, but what if I just have 5 of them? So there's one
Mm-hmm.
product that I have. I buy it from Walmart. It is only available for in-store pickup. And I am only willing to go to 2 different Walmarts. I typically can get 10 to 15 of them a month. I twice a month try to buy them from both of them. And sometimes they're out of stock for a while, sometimes not. Well, if I just have 15 to sell the whole month, it'd be very silly of me. And this ASIN sells like 500 times a month, according to Keepa. It'd be very silly of me to price this at the lowest price because I'm going to run out of stock in a week and I'm going to twiddle my thumbs for 3 weeks with no product. What makes the most sense for me is to price that high enough to move about 15 units a month because I can't get any more. And I could sell less, but for me, it's like I'm going to price these appropriately based off how much I have, And
Mm-hmm.
if you're an RA seller and there's only so many on the shelf, like don't sell that at the buy box because you only have 3. Let those 3, those are maybe like if you shopped at an Ollie's, those are the only 3 you're going to have. That item might actually be discontinued. Like milk that money as far as you can. So that's a scenario that I actually would intentionally sell above the buy box. It has nothing to do with my preference. It has to do with if I don't, this is a one and done situation. So I want to maximize my money. And, the opposite end, Jim, I'm sure if there's scenarios that if you have something from a wholesaler and like, look, we can get unlimited of these and you sell at the buy box and there's a bunch of competition, there's tons of FBA on there. And it's like, but hey, at the buy box, man, you're getting your 30, 40, 50% ROI easy. The ROI is good. Hey, let's turn and burn because I can have unlimited of these. And so I'd say in those scenarios where you can buy as many units as you want, you have the capital, plenty of capital to spend, and there's tons of FBA competition on that. If you price that thing $3 above the buy box, there's a very good chance it's not selling for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
It just is what it is because the ASIN tells us that, and the availability helps us choose that method too.
Yeah. Yeah. And something I'm always avoiding, this needs to be thrown out there, is, we call it in the industry. I've been doing this for 23 years. One of the most frustrating things I can set my eyes on is our death pile of inventory. It's like, really? That stuff is still sitting here. Like, what is going on?
Oh
And
yeah.
one of the things I love about the above buy box strategy is there's a 0% chance of us ever having a death pile. Whereas if I'm buying 300 units of anything, I don't care how sure about it is, that could be death pile a month or 2 from now, right?
Yeah.
Amazon could come into that ASIN tomorrow, pay a fraction of what I just paid, put it on every shelf in the country, and suddenly I'm sitting there stuck with this stuff, and I'm thinking, man, I got in too deep, right? So you avoid that. So that's part of the risk mitigation of the above buy box strategy. But yeah, we've bought pallets of stuff, and more often than not, man, if it's a hot ASIN, part of the beautiful thing of this business is if it's a hot ASIN today, and for some reason it just gets its legs cut out, people say, oh, the price tanked. What the price tanking means to me is it's going to get really popular. It's going to be a loss leader, going to get a lot of eyeballs on it. And you wait 6, 8 weeks, it's going to be back to being a beautiful ASIN again.
Yeah.
So often. I mean, that was Khang's entire business model. He hops on the super hot tanked ASINs and waits for them to start swinging back up again. Sellers dropping off, price rising. That's when he jumps back in. That's his whole strategy. He built a $3 million business doing just that. So price tanking doesn't really ultimately scare me that much. But the permanent stuff, or where it feels like it is, like, man, I've had these 2 pallets sitting over here for 6 months. What's going on, guys? Like, I avoid that entirely by saying I'm not going to go too deep on anything. If that's the personality of the type of seller you want to be, I don't want to have all that stuff possibly accumulating. I don't want my cash tied up too long in inventory. So it's a risk thing. It's a personality thing. It's a pace thing. I think we've laid out a pretty good landscape. And there's really no conflict here. Like, is this one right? This one wrong? Is this one better? But like, it's more where you
There's a
at.
lot of crossover.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the two kind of complement and support each other very well.
Yeah.
You need to be
Yeah.
experimenting with the other side if you aren't. I think we've established that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think maybe so I love to give action steps and people of like, hey, if they want to try this or this or whatever. So what I encourage my students to do, so just an interesting fact, let me just say this, and I'm doing math in my head real quickly, but if I were to just purchase 5 units of all my ASINs and I were to price them as I'm pricing them now, and I were to play it safe with that, I don't think I would have full-time income.
Right. I bet you
And
wouldn't. Yeah.
so by buying more with my personal strategy is, I make 3 times as much as I made in my job before Amazon. And it's the same ASINs, it's just buying more of them. So I share that with my students because lots of times I think there's a spectrum of when you're a brand new seller, you should start off buying 3 to 5. My number was 5. I bought only 5 of every test item for about 6 months. Then that became 10. And probably for about 2 years, I never bought more than 10 on a test buy. Now I don't test buy because I've grown to the point of being able to read Keepa and knowing this is what this thing would sell.
Yeah.
So to help this person so when you're starting off, if you're brand new, don't buy more than 3 to 5, period, until you're seeing that the stuff you're buying is selling, right? You're seeing that 90, 95% success rate. But let's say you're there. You're at that 90 to 95% success rate. Not a ton of your stuff is tanking. You are making profit. Find your ones that are the best ROI and see what happens when you send in 10. See what happens. Don't do it on all of them. Don't just double. Don't do that. Don't do it. See what happens when you send in 10, and you might be surprised. And then maybe try it on some other ones. And what may happen with some people is they send in 10 and they say, oh no, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to go back. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't want anyone to stay in their lane on both spectrums. Don't just sell with the buy box, experiment above. Don't just sell above the buy box, experiment below, buy a few more. Where I think it's a pretty amazing perspective to look at where I'm talking to students. And so I have one that, does 20,000 a month. And they said, Grant, I've never bought more than 10 of anything. I almost always just buy 5. And so it's for me to even explain to them, hey, look, there's a scenario. All you have to do is just buy more of what you're already doing. And you now have, more than either of your spouse's income right now. Like you have all the information, all the data, all the ASINs you need to sell at a high level.
Yeah.
But that's a down the line couple years thing. So
ease into it. And I know we have this in common. We're both all about, avoiding unnecessary risk. But I love the way you said it. You've got a nice set of ASINs. They're doing predictably well. You're used to only buying 3 to 5 at a time on your best ones. let's dip our toe in that 10 unit water. If that goes well, let's turn a few of those into 50, 100 unit a month ASINs and have, to me, that is a beautiful business. You've got 5 to 10% of your ASINs that you're going after aggressive, and you're fine $1 to $3 profit per unit because you're buying hundreds a month, and it's cranking your credit card points, and you're building reputations with that supplier. And then you've got the longer tail of your business. And I've got ASINs in my catalog that I'm very happy to sell 1 or 2 a month and then restock them at a nice pace. And we ran out, who cares? We'll buy 2 more, when we get around to it, but the margins are just phenomenal. And those are some of the higher priced ASINs we sell on too. I don't want to go to buy 50 units of a $300 item.
Oh, no.
But I'll buy 1 or 2.
We even talk about that. Price is a huge, I don't go, right. I won't go more than 10 deep on something that costs me more than $50. We've got some
fun ASINs that, you look at the buy box. I love those bouncy buy boxes when I talk about the above buy box. So we've got this stuff that's the buy box that Keep is reporting is bouncing between $250 and $400, just like up and down, up and down. 4 sellers, they're all FBM.
Yeah.
I'm going to hop on there as an FBA seller with 1 unit a month at the high price that I see. And it may take me 3 weeks to sell it, but boom, there it goes. Okay, we made $90 on that thing today. Let's go order another one. I'm not going to go buy 500 units and then Amazon shows up and sells it for $75 starting tomorrow, right? I'm not going to play with that, but 1 or 2 at a time. So, again, if you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on any of this stuff.
Because I would not sell that at the buy box either, for the record, and I would not buy 5 units of that one either. So it's
even if $250 was, say, a $5 or $10 profit for you, like it's one return destroys you, right? It's just But I've got the risk tolerance, and I've seen this work enough, and I've learned to recognize those patterns. Like, man, that buy box is so bouncy. It'd be crazy not to hop on that with a unit, right? And in the long term, it ultimately pays off for us. But man, this is a great conversation. I think this is one of those episodes where people are going to have to listen to it, especially if they're on the newer end of being in our community. This may have been over some people's heads just a little bit, but not too much. I think we brought them along for the ride. But I know my brain is tired. So I imagine this might be one people have to listen to a second time to kind of, pick some of this apart. But I think we did a good service to the community today to kind of parse through. There's more than 2 strategies, but above buy box versus at buy box, and what is a buy box? I think we hit it pretty well today, about as well as we could with a 45-minute hour episode. So anything that you wanted to add before we wind this one up? I think
no, I think that's it. I think we got it. I think it was good.
I do too, man. I do too. I love working with you, brother. I love your heart. I love your teacher's heart, your servant's heart, and you put your passion into serving this community. And it's an honor to work with you, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, buddy. Well, let's wrap this one up. For the listeners who hung out with us today, I got some good news for you. If you enjoyed today's episode, we got hundreds of these. We're coming up on 1,000 episodes, Grant. That's crazy. But then the vast majority of them are success stories with our students who have gone on to build great businesses. So if you want to hear a whole bunch of those, that's what our show is all about. Glad you hung out with Grant and I today. And we'll have another great episode for you very soon. Talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to this great episode of Silent Sales Machine Radio. We have a very quick announcement that you don't want to miss right now.
Does anyone out there ever feel uncertain when choosing an ASIN to test? Like, it's ambiguous and you're not really sure?
Yeah, or like you have to stand on one leg on the second Tuesday of the first week of the month if the moon is in retrograde.
Right. And hold your mouth right. You got to remember to hold your mouth right. Then you might possibly
consider testing that ASIN someday, maybe.
Right. Sometimes Keepa seems overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Like it's got so many data points. What if I'm missing something? I'm afraid I'm missing something, so I don't want to pull the trigger. Right?
Yes. Well, we host a 2-day workshop that will demystify the process of building a predictable, scalable, and sustainable book of business on Amazon.
Yeah, it starts with a pre-flight inspection of a listing. So you can answer the question, should I go any further with this ASIN or do I need to move on?
If you get past that, we're going to show you how to apply 3 simple yes or no questions that will help you decide whether to pull the trigger or not. Yeah. Is this even a good ASIN to test?
Right. And if you do decide to test it, we'll help you implement a framework for a 4-week testing process. And this process is clear and methodical, and it'll tell you whether you should replenish that ASIN or not.
Now, in these 2 days, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to practice how to apply these critical concepts together. It's intense, it's focused, and it's packed with frameworks, quizzes, and actionable information that really is going to stack the deck in your favor when finding your first 100 replenishable ASINs.
Or your next 100 replenishable ASINs.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. You're going to leave with a roadmap to create your foundational book of business over the next few months.
Our next workshop is May 27th and 28th in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, but seating is limited. It's an intimate setting, but you'll be able to ask all of your questions, plus you'll hear all the questions of the other attendees.
Yeah, this is fun, dynamic, educational. It's a great experience where you will get to meet and work with other people who are doing the same things that you are with similar goals. Mm-hmm. Imagine how you would feel when you get back home after the workshop and you're feeling transformed from unsure to certain, from cautious to confident, from overwhelmed to empowered.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to stand on one leg anymore and hold your mouth right. Just
Right.
making sure, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if you would like to feel that way, go to provenamazoncourse.com/100. That's provenamazoncourse.com/100. And we look forward to seeing you there because we're inspired by the accomplishments of others.
We're passionate about helping others reach their goals.
And we're committed to sharing the keys to success that have been shared with us.